From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 63 and we're talking about science fiction film 2067 made in 2020 or released in 2020. There's a lot of 20s, Surrey. In this episode, we'll reveal what we thought about the film, the ins and outs of narrative and film language, plus a deep dive into a specific piece of science that the filmmakers are proposing. This Australian sci-fi was written and directed by Seth Larney, and there's additional writing by Dave Patterson and Gareth Davies.
Good old Dave-O Patterson, my buddy with Blunto and Larney.
All your mates, you know them all.
All my mates from down the pub.
So
this is your spoiler warning. Turn back now if you haven't seen this film. We're going to talk all about it and spoil it completely for you.
Yeah, I'm going to ruin the whole thing right now by telling you that 2067
is a film. Go back, watch it, join us again, and hear what we have to say because it's an awesome film.
It is. It's truly a visual spectacular that you must sit down and watch. I loved a lot about this film, and I'll get to it in a moment. But hey, what's the plot? In 2067, there is no natural plants left on Earth, and the planet is dying along with humanity. There's also this kind of illness, or the sickness, I think they call it. And so with a last-ditch effort to save the planet, they send the son of a scientist who invented a time-traveling machine into the future to see if there's hope for humanity to survive. Like, how do we get to the future? How do we get there? And that's what this film questions, and see if he can bring back a cure for this sickness. What was your number one takeaway of 2067, Surrey?
My number one takeaway of 2067 was that even in a future where the air is being run out and everyone is slowly suffocating and dying, the corporation that creates air is still squeezing for money and profit.
Squeeze.
Isn't that just what you'd expect? It's like, oh, you need oxygen to live, dear. Well, if you want the good stuff, you got to pay premium dollar.
Are you telling me that a billionaire like Richard Branson would do this? Would he charge so much money, you know, people are starving, and then he'd just go up for a little aeroplane ride and cost billions of dollars?
He'd be on Mars.
They wouldn't do that. Yeah, he'd be... Yeah, Musk... Well, isn't old Muskie, your mate Muskie, going to Mars?
Muskie, Brano... They all Bezo all went up there.
Bezo went up in the penis thing into space.
I can't believe there's such a cock-shaped rocket. I mean, rockets are already
pretty
cock-shaped. Like,
just add the little bit of balls at the bottom, I think.
It's just getting right up there in Mother Nature.
Yeah, and I like that he said, "We're doing this for the kids of tomorrow, not me."
Well, I mean, to be fair, I had to think about this. And this is something that I did think about because...
The internet crashed.
People say on the internet, and with some reason to say it, that you're spending billions of dollars to go for a joyride in space.
Yeah.
You should be solving world hunger. Except I can assure you that it's orders of magnitude simpler to put a rocket together and get into space than it is to negotiate and deal with all of the social issues, all of the governments, all the different people. I mean, if it was just a matter of having a few $1 billion, the US GDP is in the trillions of dollars.
Yeah, why not give everyone a few dollars?
Well, that's not going to help anyone.
No.
But if you're saying that $30 billion could solve world hunger, then why doesn't the world's richest nation just do that? We'd be talking about like a mere fraction of the amount they spend on the military, and apparently, according to these people, that we could solve world hunger.
Yeah.
It's obviously not that simple.
No, it's not.
But it's actually not that hard to send someone up in a spaceship. That really can be done by a company with some billions of dollars.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, it's their money, right? They can do whatever the hell they want with it.
There are advantages. The advantages that come from this is, first of all, you get this sense of hope, like, this achievement. But then all of the artificial intelligence and guidance and program that went into get like a rocket that can go up and land itself and that sort of thing. That's all progress and development. The material science required to produce ever lighter, stronger, faster, better rockets. So it's not a complete waste.
No.
It is a bit sort of what would have been better is if those three worked together on one project. Yeah. Maybe that would have been a better use of the money.
And then competition, right? These guys are swinging dicks. Like
you can say, but does that make it a better result, or does that just mean that you've got someone, whoever's willing to cut the most corners is the one that will get up? Like
because Branson got up there about 2 days before Bezo. Was it Bezo or Bizzo? Whatever his name is. Like it was like literally only a couple of days.
And you know
they were like, you just took the headlines.
Where they're saying, how many days can we shave off the safety testing? Okay. Anyway, that's my number one. That's my number one takeaway. Is that even in the future, where the world is dying, there's still companies looking to get as much profit as possible.
Yeah, Virgin Atlantic,
I don't
Amazon or whatever it is.
Well, Amazon took the air out of their warehouses long ago. There's
just
robots in there. So tell me though. Is this a hope, a warning, or an experiment?
This lovely story about us ruining the climate and just totally about to be extinct or literally becoming extinct is a warning. Story of hope.
Oh, hope.
I know, spanner in the works, Surrey. The whole thing, I think, why it's hope is, you've got that awful setup. You've got your main protagonist, goes into the future. Everything looks terrible. And then, hey, by just sending some plants back to the present, then the future becomes this kind of, we're going to live in trees, like I love it. The end of this film is to me very, very hopeful.
We all become part of L'Oreal or whatever it is in Lord of the Rings, tree home.
That would be cool. We could be like little hermits in homes, But also even his best friend. I mean, like and we'll get into the details of this in a minute. But his brother, friend, archangel, whatever you want to call it, like he doesn't kill him, he kills himself, which is dark, but he sacrifices himself so that then the future is a bit more beneficial. So
the hope on that also is free will, because this question I think I spoke about with the Terminator, where do you really have the free will, or
the robot's just coming anyway,
stuck in a time loop, like if something has happened, will it always happen?
Yes. Is
it possible to have a variation in that? And so it was a nice bit of hope there that yes, in fact, you do have control over your own fate, and they did it very well.
They did, I think, a really good job at that hope, building hope. So tell me a story, Surrey. How did you watch this film?
Used my eyeballs.
And what was your impression through your eyeballs of 2067?
The impression of watching this film. I watched this film. I went onto the train.
Ooh.
It was pissing down rain initially.
Yeah.
In fact, it
had Atmos.
It had Atmos, yeah. So I had my earphones in there. I was feeling quite antisocial as usual. It's a train. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Dance with people?
Who talks on the train?
That would be kind of cool, actually, dancing with people.
People do that, weirdos.
Yeah, weirdos. But
not us sci-fi types.
I was on the train. I was watching it there, so I had it very immediate in my head. And the impressions I got were that you've got such beautiful contrasts of colour and design in this film. The claustrophobia of the tunnels at the starting.
Yeah.
Along then with the cityscape, which was dark down the bottom and dingy, and there wasn't a lot of light and life, but people were still struggling on
artificial lighting.
He gets up into the oxygen generating company place, and it looks like it's been designed by Apple.
Google. It's one of those Google places.
It's all smooth and white with little blue trim lighting, and it's quite beautiful. Maybe I should make my kitchen look like that. And then he gets to the forest, and it's all green and lush and hopeful and joyous, but then turns dark despite retaining its beautiful color.
Yeah.
So that sort of went through there. It was also a very emotional film. There's a few spots there where I just about shed a tear.
Ooh, the Surrey tearometer.
Yes. I don't have tear ducts, so it's actually physically impossible for me to shed a tear.
Yeah.
But I would have had I tear ducts. Yes. And yourself, how did you watch this film? What feel?
I did. I did a bit of a split viewing. I watched most of it on a laptop, and then I saw a fair bit of it on the big screen, which was cool. To me, it was the visual medium of it, and that hope message coming through, I think, made me feel quite positive. To me, climate change is very important. I don't think I really gave much of a shit about it until I had kids. But it is also one of these things that when I started looking into climate change about 12 or so years ago, that, it felt, like you kind of learn stuff and you kind of go, yeah, I'm going to go do this. And then a couple of years later, you're like, it's still the same. Like nothing has really changed, and you kind of find yourself. And I think that's the thing with climate change is that you kind of feel a bit hopeless at times about it. So it's nice to get a feeling of possible hope. I think this film also makes me feel like it's extremely real. Like when you talk about 2067, I've heard stories about you can't take an audience too far into the future. And when you think about this film, it did take us a long way, actually, 2067, but it didn't feel too abstract. And that's a bit scary, Surrey. And I think it doesn't feel too abstract because we're all talking about the climate. You get these headlines. I know the other day the scientists were saying, there was some sort of headline where the scientists was sort of saying, oh, we kind of feel like 2030 is now like the crossover point. Like after that, it's too late. And then you hear another headline where it's like, we've already crossed over that CO2 level that we shouldn't have ever crossed over, 400 milligrams per ounce of air or so, whatever it was. They predicted that wouldn't happen till like 2050 and it's already happened. So you kind of can feel very down, and this film does that, but then it kind of gives you a sense of hope. I also think it's very real that we may become extinct as humans and the planet just reinvigorates itself.
Eventually we will become extinct as humans. It's inevitable.
Well, it will, yeah. And I mean, you've seen this thing where we are only a little scratch on the time frame of the Earth's lifespan. Dinosaurs, which became extinct, were here for millions of years. We've only been here, 100,000 years or something like that, whatever, right?
Depends on how you count it.
Yeah, who knows? There's someone important there along the clock range, isn't there, apparently, whatever that is. But yeah, I think there is a funny feeling that this film gives me, really. It feels close to home.
I think what I like when you're talking about the hope of this is that we talk about time travel films and they go, the short story was The Sound of Thunder.
Yeah.
Where a guy goes back in time, steps on a butterfly, comes back to the future, radically changed.
Yes.
So we all know the danger of if you go back in time and just change even a small detail, expand it out over a long period, you get a big change. But we seem to lose sight of the fact that counts for, like, today is the past of some distant future.
Yes.
And in this, 2067 was the past of 2400.
Yep.
And in 2400, it's all green and beautiful.
Yes.
And what little change happened was that humans died.
Yeah.
And it took 400 years, and you got this big change.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should have humans die to solve our air problems. That's probably going further than it needs to go.
Yeah.
But what it does mean, though, is, we can take hope from this film that, you do a small thing. You put solar panels on, and you think, oh, I'm just one tiny thing. But it could well be that in 200 years' time, people are looking back and going, you know what really turned the corner?
Was when Surrey put solar panels on his...
Not Surrey, but when the individuals at home started doing these one or two things, because you've got 7-8 billion people on the planet, each person does one little thing.
Yeah.
And then it cascades.
Snowballs, doesn't it? Yeah.
And then, 100 years' time, things are starting to look pretty good for those people, which doesn't help us much, I suppose you could say. But if we're going to be more sort of larger in our scope of humanity, then yes, it's great.
It definitely is. Why is this film a sci-fi, sorry?
Why is this film... This film is a sci-fi because, as we like to say, it explores some fictionalization or speculation of a scientific principle, or multiple scientific principles in this case. And going further than that, it's a core item within the narrative. Like, you could not tell this story without having this speculative science in it.
It's a hypothesis, isn't it?
Yes, we've got to have some sort of what if all life started to die out? What if all the plants died? That's a really obvious way, and then humans along with it.
Humans would be next, yeah.
But then what if we had a way of going far into the future?
Yeah.
Where we found that things were better. So what comes out of that?
Yeah.
And this story here, it has a lot of human elements to it. There's a lot of personal tragedy and relationships and trust issues and so forth, which all get resolved and deal here. But ultimately, they stem from and are caused by and are interrelated with this time travel and oxygen problem. The fact that the scientist, Ethan's dad, creates this time travel thing with the idea that maybe we can learn what people in the future have done to fix this. Yeah. And, that couldn't, what else could you do there? More than that, he gets a message back from the future, which convinces him to do something with his son. So you get this reverse, but it turns out it's his son who sends that message back. Yeah. And so you get this reverse causal effect thing, that the reason he sends his son through is because his son was sent through and told him to send him through. Yeah, which goes back to like the Terminator idea of if John, how could John send someone back? John Connor send back a soldier who becomes his father when he. It still does my head in, doesn't it? It's like, how does John Connor grow up to be the soldier to send back another soldier to save his mum when that soldier is also his father? Yeah, it's like who started that loop? It's spontaneous generation, isn't it? Yeah, I know. Yeah. And that's wonderful. And this film here explores that question: do we have the free will? Is time written in stone? And it does this. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that this film does extremely well. The visual effects, as I said, and I think the coloration and some of the drama set up. But in particular, because I'm a sciencey sort of guy, I really love the way that this film examined that free will compared to set history dilemma. Definitely. So, speaking of the science, which part of the science did you happen to like? I liked the oxygen running out. So I think this idea of the no more trees, we joked about it. The last tree was logged on planet Earth. We hear that in the opening sequence of this film. And it's so simple, yet it kind of feels like humanity may sort of do this to ourselves in a way. You get old Jono sitting there in the Brazilian rainforest with his chainsaw, just cutting down the last tree. He must know if he doesn't know it's exactly the last tree, he's got to be looking around. There's no forest anywhere to the horizon. Yeah, and he's not seen a forest anywhere for ages. He sees a tree there, and he's got himself a chainsaw. He's like, "Yeah, those matchsticks aren't going to make themselves." That's right. And I said this to you as well. Like, it reminds me of the Dr. Seuss, the Lorax. Very similar premise, not the time traveling bit, but definitely that idea of like cutting down all the trees, manufacturing them into something. And I can't remember if you're out there and you know the Lorax, tell me the name of what I've forgotten what it is, but they make something out of the trees, the fiddle sticks or something. You just said matchsticks. It's the same sort of thing. It's like creating something crazy out of trees, and then of course you get to the point where there's no more trees and in that story, as the trees get cut down, it's now there's no more. The bears come and complain, and because there's nowhere for them to shelter, and then because you cut it all down, the rivers get polluted, and then the fish all die, and the fish come and complain, and the Lorax keeps going until there's nothing left. And so I don't know. This film, this setup, I'm probably already leaning. It's a pretty despairing setup, but to me, the science of us getting to a point where we have no oxygen and we're all got masks, and we're breathing, this is how you survive. You need a mask,
It's very real to me, that science. Like, I don't think it's that far-fetched.
It's not. You can imagine a tipping point. I mean, some of the weather we've been having.
Yeah.
That's a bit scary. Like, here locally,
we're having extreme weather.
We had the wettest July of 26 years or whatever it is. Like, which is crazy because normally we have here particularly long dry spells. Like, we're renowned for having great stretches of sunshine. Like I was reading because I was looking into solar panels.
Yeah.
I'm building a house. I'm going to put solar panels on the roof. I went, what sort of return do I get? And we get an average of 5.5 sunny hours per day over the year. So that's not like 5.5 hours sunny during summer.
Yep.
That's every day. Winter, summer, the whole lot. 5.5 sunny days. Sunshine hours, I should say. 5.5 sunshine hours every day.
Yep.
Which, that's incredible. So you can imagine then that requires a lot. Because we do have these rainy days with a heavy cloud cover. It does require then long stretches of long days with no clouds and sunny. And to have this is what we've had this past month. But it's crazy.
And I think and we're not going to do it here, but if you go to somewhere like the Bureau of Meteorology and stuff and look at averages and all that sort of stuff, right now we're having like the wettest July, as you just said, for 30 years or something, right? But then come summer, we'll have the driest summer on record compared to last year. And last year beat the record of the year before or 2 years before that. And so what to me, and we notice is that we had those massive bushfires happening in Australia a couple of years ago, or last year actually, beginning. COVID sort of took away those headlines. Right now, Canada is having the biggest bushfires they've ever experienced.
Oh, they've had temperatures up 46, 47 degrees.
Australian firefighters are going over there, right? So it's like California last year had bushfires that ravaged, those sort of celebrity homes and stuff. But it was the biggest bushfires California had ever had. And I'm sure across the globe, it seems that the weather pattern is becoming more on the extreme ends. Yes. Like, I can't, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a meteorologist in that way, but it's pretty evident that you can sort of say, are the extreme days or records seem to be being broken continuously.
Yeah, the extremes are getting closer.
It's not just like, today's the hottest day ever, for 80 years, and that's the news headline for today, and then that's it. Oh, but then tomorrow is hotter again.
Yes.
and then it's not. And then it's like when we get to winter, we've just had the wettest July that we've ever had. So you have flooding.
Yeah.
And then you go, but then there's no rain for August, September, October, November, and so then we're the driest record on ever. It's like all the extremities seem to be getting bigger and bigger. And you do get a lot of naysayers. And I mean, the beautiful thing in a country like Australia in terms of science is that the Bureau of Meteorology is already 100 years old. So they've got records that are over 100 years old now. And so anyone that kind of doubts the science, you go check out their records.
You're going to find that the people who doubt the science at this point of the day have got in their mind that the data is not reliable.
Yeah, I know. So, it's like talking about vaccines and stuff, But I mean, I'm just saying, like, there is people that are climate change denialists. It's like, fair enough. I'm all in. Everyone has their own opinion, but with something like the weather, you can, in a country like Australia, every country is obviously different. But a country like Australia, we now have like records that go back 120 years. That have formally been recorded. So you can go and check out records. So if anyone says, it's not that bad or it's not that extreme, you go, okay, well, go check out the records. Literally. Go look at them.
I think that, as I said, the people who would actually do that have done that by now.
I know.
And now we're down to the people who, with their fingers in their ears, going, nah.
What, my toddlers? Yeah, my toddlers.
No, those scientists are just trying to make a buck. They've gone back and doctored all those records. And you're like,
I know.
Okay,
I guess.
Yeah.
The scientists from 100 years ago doctored the records from 100 years ago.
Better to do, but okay.
So let's talk about what's going to happen on a sunny day in Mandurah.
Sunny Mandurah.
In May 2022.
Science Fiction Film Festival.
We've got the Spacebrains. It's the first one. We're super pumped. We've been getting lots of great little short films entered. through
and
Film
feature
Free.
film.
And I was just going to say, and a feature film so far. It'd be great to get a couple of more features in there. I was super pumped. A couple of people I know in the film world have said to me they're making stuff. So I just encourage anyone out there who has a love for sci-fi, and if you would like your film shown at a red carpet event with a live audience of
Big screen,
over
sound
100
system.
people,
Beautiful.
and we will be there talking about it. So, come on.
Obvo.
Celebrities that will be there, but it's going to be a sensational night, and please make a sci-fi and enter it. And what kind of categories are there? Surrey?
Oh, there's things like best director, best actor, like male, female, best youth or student. We've got local and Australian and international categories.
We do.
I think it's like 12 categories. So we haven't gone over the top.
No.
We've kind of covered the important bases.
We have. And it's a real festival, in person. Hopefully COVID doesn't ruin it or anything, but, it'll be happening in Mandurah at our beautiful Mandurah Performing Arts Centre at the Fish Trap Theatre. As I said, over 140 seats, I think, in there. And, it'll be a live audience watching your film if you get selected. So make it, enter it. We're still in the early bird stage. I believe that goes all the way to August 2020, 2021.
The end of August.
Last year, no, August 2021 is the early bird on Film Freeway. After that, it's still pretty cheap, but if you want to get in now, it's a little bit cheaper.
Okay. Let's get stuck in the film.
Yeah, so 2067 was directed and written by Seth Larney, and it had additional writing by Dave Patterson and Gareth Davies. A couple of them big actors. Kodi Smit-McPhee plays Ethan, our protagonist, and Ryan Kwanten plays the... I was a bit confused exactly what this guy was. Was he his brother? Was he his friend? Was he his colleague? Or was it all of the above? Yeah, adopted brother. Yeah. And Deborah Mailman kind of plays the head of... what were they called? Chronicle or Chrony... Something. I think I did write it down. I'll come back to it.
Bad Guy Corp.
This was filmed in South Australia, predominantly funded by the Screen Australia, South Australian Film Commission, and also the Adelaide Film Festival, another film festival.
Great.
Funding feature films. Maybe Spacebrains will do that one day.
God, I hope so.
I hope so too. Not sure about the box office. I couldn't get any records on that, so I'm sorry to let everyone down on that, but I would say the budget of this film probably was around the pretty standard for Australian, something like about $4 million, and which I know for our US listeners will be shocked that we make films that cheaply, but we do, that look this good. And it did have a small cinema release, and then I believe it went on to iTunes first up, and it was a number one on iTunes for a couple of weeks, and then it sort of went on to other streaming platforms. So we'd have to get Netflix on. Maybe one day we can have Netflix on Spacebrains telling us all about numbers and box office.
I'd love to hear about
we can
more
get
about
into
how that works.
Yeah. So that's something. If Netflix, you're listening, we love a lot of the films you're putting out there, especially sci-fi.
And we know you are listening.
And we know you listen to us because we hashtag Netflix. And that's all they care about, sorry. But yeah, we can get them on one day, hopefully, and they can let us know about that. But maybe even Seth, if you're out there listening, come on, let's talk about 2067. I want to say that this film is visually beautiful. I think his digital effects come into play. I was just watching a bit about Steven Spielberg and CGI being birthed with Jurassic Park and the guys that actually created that, sort of blowing Spielberg's pants off, literally. This is like a CGI dinosaur, and him realising he could make Jurassic Park. So if you fast forward 30 years from Jurassic Park into something like this, the effects are amazing, but they're twofold amazing. It's not only those CGI moments, it's also sets. Like the sets were built really beautifully.
It's always my favourite when the director and the art crew, what are they called?
Production design, and so forth. Set design.
They managed to get that really good mix of
they
the
do,
two, particularly where you don't know whether it's CG or whether it's real.
Yep.
Iron Mother famously did this with...
Yeah.
They had real... the bunker, for example. They actually built that bunker out.
Yeah, the bunker was real.
With real lighting in the bunker. So they didn't have to shift lights around the place. That, however, included shots of Mother, the robot, which was a real suit. But there were scenes with the little toddler walking around where the toddler was terrified of their suit. And fair enough. So they actually had the mother... the toddler's actual mother walking hand in hand with the toddler through there. And then they just CG'd a robot over top, and you can't tell. No. It looks just like the suit.
It does.
You can't tell that they've got CG over top of a real mother to make Mother.
Well, I'll tell you in this, and you're exactly pointed out, like when they sort of walk through the jungle and they see the city, you notice they walk over stones that are broken, concrete. There's concrete that's kind of broken, and there's trees growing out. And then we see... obviously, it's a CGI broken city, that's been overgrown with nature.
I'm pretty sure they didn't build a full-scale.
No, but the thing was, it was done very seamlessly that they're sort of stepping over rocks and broken blocks, really big chunks of concrete. So they've obviously dumped some bits in that bit of natural landscape, and that's exactly what you're saying, that kind of mix between the two, and I think that works really well. Likewise, when they look at the city, you can see that when they sort of look up at the city and there's I was going to say spaceships, but vehicles that fly and stuff and bridges, you can see that they would not have built that, but half of the ground and the tunnel that they're in is all built, so it's real mixed with that CGI, and I think that's always very impressive. It's also this story, before we get just stuck into it, it's a father-son story in a way. So you mentioned that emotional beat, like there's definitely Ethan and his father, he has a big issue with his father, and yet his father, the scientist, is so pivotal to the plot, and then when you throw in Jude, Ryan Kwanten's sort of character, that he was sort of thrust in as a adopted older brother or angel to look after him or whatever. Like, there's also that. There's sort of like that, are you really my brother or not? And so, there's a good emotional primal arc to this story.
Yeah, and the wife, Xanthi, who he clearly holds an emotional connection between her, the situation that he has with her and his dad and mum, the fact that his mum died because dad wasn't there. And so you get these echoes back, which is almost, again, a time travel.
Yeah, like it's almost a loop, isn't it?
It's an analogy where his father leaving the mum and then the mum dies is the future, or the past version, of Ethan and his wife, and Ethan goes off and he finds his wife's skeleton. It's quite full of those moments where people are lost or feel abandoned or discover something heartbreaking about life.
Definitely. So there's a good dramatic primal element to this story. So let's get into it. We're going to be breaking down the narrative a little bit differently tonight. I want to break it into sort of some of those key narrative points, Surrey, as we go through as well. And we'll sort of be trying to do a bit more of this continuously in future episodes, but maybe a little bit tighter. So really what we always say at the start of the narrative is there's a bit of a setup. So the setup of this film, we do have this like globe turning, the Earth turning in space. You can see as it starts turning, countries are on fire, and then they kind of are extinguished as the globe keeps turning. We get voiceover of all like newsreels, same as last week with the film. We're doing exactly the same, the setup of the story. These newsreels, however, are not talking about an alien invasion. They're talking about the planet kind of dying, basically. The last tree logged, fires, cities losing contact with other cities, countries kind of disappearing.
Going
dark, as they say. So, again, we don't really know much about that. And we end up on one final light in sort of the middle of Australia, I think.
Somewhere in Western Australia, or maybe Alice Springs or something.
Yeah, something like that. But you sort of see it.
It's pretty remote.
It's pretty remote. And that's why it surprised me then when we sort of jumped into there was actually this city, I suppose, existing. But yeah, we go in and we're told it's the year 2067.
It's the year title of the film.
We've got Ethan White, who's a tunnel worker, and he's working for this kind of power plant with his friend. They are working on the nuclear power plant for this city, and it seems to be in self-destruct mode. But they're pretty casual about it. They're having
counting down to the end of time, and they're just having a conversation about what they're going to do after work. They're not worried about their future. They've done this before. This is not a new situation. Their life and their world is on the brink. So it's a great setup, because by showing that, you don't have to have a lot of time spent indicating or showing how bad the world is or how bad the situation is. Clearly, by the casual nature of working next to a melting down fusion reactor, that they get down to the last couple of seconds before pulling the lever and it all works. Their life is touch and go at every moment.
It is, and they banter about it. They kind of joke about it almost. So, but they do it, and then when they fix it, the reactor is fine. The city goes on breathing. They then are kind of being medically checked, scanned, I think, for this illness thing that is sort of mentioned. One of the other workers, not these two, mentions that he can't come in for his shift tomorrow, and Ethan volunteers to take it. And there's a little bit of a scuffle about it, but he's like, no, I'll take it. If you don't want it, I'll take the money, kind of thing. They then, Ethan and Jude, walk through the city, and this is where we get a glimpse. There's flying vehicles, it's got huge skyscrapers, there's over bridges between places, but as far as you can see, people are wearing masks, breathing apparations. There's a nice little touch here of someone sort of preaching, the sort of end of the...
air, there's no fire. There's no air, there's no fire. Which I like the symbolism of that being like the fires, and there's no hope for humanity. There's no spark of life. Which he then takes it to the point of setting himself on fire, which again, Ethan and Jude just kind of walk past.
They don't really acknowledge it.
So this is, again, like we can see right up, this is a world that it's just about to implode. And everyone has become used to that.
Yeah.
They're just used to the idea that everything could and will end, but they always do have that hope. I mean, that's why they fix the power plant, for example, and why Ethan comes back to his wife with a new mask, even though she's got the sickness.
She has the sickness. And, that's a nice little scene with her. You realise Ethan... he does love her, he does care for her, he's got all these masks on the wall, he talks about saving enough money to get her a new machine, but obviously she's not doing well. So that to me is the setup of the film. So, we're in the future, it's very bleak, it's a dark kind of cruel world, there's not enough oxygen, his wife is sick, he needs as much money as possible to help her. It's a pretty good setup. There's a lot of problems that Ethan is facing, But what happens next, Surrey, with the inciting incident is that he's called into Chronic Corp. He's dragged into Chronic Corp. And we meet Regina Jackson, who is played... Deborah. Good old Deborah.
Debs.
Great Australian actress. Been in so many different Australian TV and films. She's fantastic. A bit of an icon. She plays Regina Jackson. She's got a cool wig, like it's a blonde streak kind of wig, which really makes her look a little bit alien. As you mentioned, this is a bit of a Apple world, isn't it? It's a bit of a...
I got throwbacks to like what's that? Catching Fire, Mockingjay, Hunger Games.
Oh yeah, Hunger Games.
Hunger Games that sort of had these sort of decadent sort of future clothes and
they
things,
did, yep,
and hair doing things unusual.
Yeah,
and I liked that everyone else, like the workers down the street, were all grimy and grungy.
Yeah,
and here she is in something that's clearly high fashion, not just utilitarian like other people are wearing.
Yeah, they quite often in these films, like Demolition Man did it, didn't they? It's like everything is clean, white, sophisticated. A bit. Yeah, the hair is kilted or tilted to a different side. The uniforms look a little bit more polished, and yet then out in society, people can't eat.
Yes.
But that's what we're like right now. I mean, you know, we joked about Richard Branson before. I mean, it's the same thing. So someone can go into space while someone else can't eat. Like, so maybe it's not that foreign, but it's just the way it is here. So she reveals that there is the sickness. Sorry, she will reveal that the sickness will wipe out humanity, and they have this machine that does she reveal it's his father made the machine or something? I think she might.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Ethan already knew.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was actually, and so she reveals that he made this prototype time machine, and that he'd worked on it, and it can go into the future 407 years.
And they'd sent a ping, and it came back not with the oxygen level or whatever it was supposed to come back with, but it had been overwritten. And the message was, up on the screen,
send Ethan White, which is Ethan.
And so that's clearly now, talk about an inciting incident. That's like, yeah, so we've got a time machine. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. What does it have to do with me?
Yeah.
Like, what does this care? Oh, because it's send Ethan White.
It's asking for you to come.
So you've got this very powerful organisation that has stole him off the street to do this.
Yeah.
And they said basically, well, it's send Ethan White. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So his now debate is, well, should he do it or should he not do it? Because he's here, he's got his wife, she's very sick. If he goes, there's a lot of danger. And there's a great debate here because it's very clear. It's like, if you go, you might die. If you use the machine, we don't exactly know if we can get you there. We've got to I think the words are, we've got to slingshot you.
Chuck you there.
We're going to chuck you there. And
because we're sending you blind without the other machine on, or the same machine at the other end turned on, you could end up in a mountain or another object. So we're going to aim a bit high is what they explain.
But it's a really clear sort of, the dangers involved in this decision. You know, like if you go, it's pretty slim that you'll survive.
It's probably a one-way trip.
Yeah, and you're not going to come back. Your wife's going to be stuck here. But if you do go and actually get a cure, well, then you could come back and save your wife, you know?
Yes.
So that's the payoff. Interesting enough, Xanthia's wife says that he should go.
Nice.
And the Ethan also says he should go.
Jude. Jude says he should go.
Sorry.
Ethan says he doesn't want to do what his dad did and leave his wife.
Leave his wife.
That's going to end up with Xanthi dying and all the rest of it.
And he's not here for her.
And you can easily see this is a straight up debate here. Like people, and there's good reasons to go, but emotionally, he should stay. He obviously does go because it would be a pretty short film otherwise.
We have then also, before breaking into him deciding to go, we have the first flashback of his father.
Yeah, yes.
And it's sort of like his father's a bit of an arsehole and
he's a bit
distant.
His dad was a bit shonky, wasn't he?
Yeah, so at the very first flash we have of it, and then this is Xanthia says, you should go. And he's like, well, I don't want to leave you. My father left us, and if he'd only stayed and
is
he
this
could
where we
have
see the pain box?
No, it's not quite here yet. Yeah. But it's happy birthday, son. I think I'm going to take this opportunity as a father. That's a future present.
Give you a pain box.
Yeah. Put your hand in that box, son.
Do you know how you like reading that book Dune by Frank? I got you a pain box. Great, Dad. I'll put that next to the demon summoning puzzle box you got me from.
That's right.
Clive Barker, or whatever.
So he decide to do it, Surrey? Or is it the end of the movie?
It's not a short film, it's a full feature length, so he does.
He decides. So this is what we call breaking into two.
And he has the condition, he says, okay, but even if I only get one dose of the cure, it goes to my wife first.
That's right, he does. So that's his one condition, and that's fine. And again, the villain, the bad guy, or woman in this case, Regina Jackson, says, sure, she can have the dose.
Yeah, no worries, mate. You do all you like.
You do that, whatever you like with that one dose. I don't care. And so he goes through the machine. And I liked this, how they sent him through the machine. As we said, they were aiming high. It was done very cleverly because unlike, like if you do think about something like The Beyond, where we have this long flash, or even Interstellar, there's kind of transportation. Here it happened really quickly, didn't it? The machine is a cool machine. It's red-eyed again.
Yes.
Which I thought, is it, it's a bit ominous. It's got a big red eye. It does it zappy, and there's a bit of lightning and stuff, but it's a pretty cool physical time machine. He has to also wear a suit, which
is reminiscent, really, of the TV show, The Time Tunnel.
Yeah.
Remember that, which was kind of this tunnel with a swirling effect that people would go down and go, woo.
Stargate is another TV show, isn't it? Sort of that alien thing that they discovered, and they can walk through a bubbly wall sort of thing.
And he's got his suit, and he has Archie, which is his little PDA, which somehow transmits data back or something. I wasn't clear on that exactly, but it was like a little PDA, basically, a little helpy assistant person.
Siri in the future.
Hey Archie, he said, "Hey Archie, do this for me," and would. And then he gets strapped into like a little rockety packety thing.
Yeah.
And there's a second suit, but that's not ready yet.
It's not ready yet.
Which, obviously it's going to be ready sometime pretty soon, because why would you introduce a second suit?
And they can only, the rule of the game here as well is they can only create enough energy really to send one person into the future, and then that's kind of it.
And that they sort of wouldn't want to try it again.
No, because it does zap up a lot of the city's energy. It's basically going to cause a blackout across the city. So he goes through, and it's done really, as it says, it's cool how he's flashed forward in time, and he kind of then is falling through trees, lands in this beautiful green forest. He's on fire. He's got to kind of rip the suit off. And so therefore, and that's a great plot point, isn't it, Surrey? Because what's the point of the suit being damaged?
It's clearly his transition into the new world.
Yeah, but there's no way back, right?
Yes.
Like he's the suit sort of protecting him. He can't just like jump back.
And I mean, tunnels and portals are often used. Like, I mean, you think of like Narnia and through the Looking Glass.
Yeah, but the DeLorean as well, right? Like the DeLorean, he doesn't have the fuel source. Like there's no way to go back now. It's a one-way ticket.
It's moving from his first world, which is all those problems.
Yeah.
He's now transported magically into this new realm where... And this one actually used like a portal.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, for example, he gets bitten by a spider and he wakes up and he's all freaky. So he's been transported into this new world, and it's fun and games. Everything's different. All the rules are different. Everything plays differently, or seems to anyway. Yeah. And there was that movie we watched back, woman with Reaper disease. She had to go find dude, and she's like fighting the Glaswegian punks in some sort of future city, and then they go through the underground tunnel and come out the other side, and they're in like King Arthur's realm. Sometimes it's a very literal portal that people go through to get to this stage, and sometimes it's a metaphorical one. This one is quite literal in that he's there, and the lighting is different. Everything, it's all bright.
It's bright.
He takes his first breaths, and he has trouble. He coughs a bit at first, though. I think probably because it's so much oxygen. It's too good.
Still good oxygen.
And it's all green, and it's sunlight, and it's nice. It's not an ominous, foreboding, scary rainforest like a jungle with possibly dangerous snakes and spiders. Although if it's up in Queensland, it genuinely probably does. Has some very threatening snakes and spiders.
But it's not that jungle in this story.
But it's not that real. No. And in reality, I mean, people live in jungles all the time. Yeah, it's not really a big problem. But it's a beautiful, it's almost like a magical forest, It's a bit like the 100 when they land on the planet.
Yeah, that's true,
and they come out, they're expecting to just die when they open the doors. Yeah. And it's this wonderland forest. Yeah. It reveals itself a bit later on.
Yeah.
But in this case, fun and games in the forest.
So he uses his little Archie, who can't get a satellite, which I was a bit like, there's no satellite, but can't get a satellite.
Well, that's a bit of a warning sign, because if there are people, you're like, okay.
Archie, Siri, you're not working properly anymore. Well, there's no satellites here, buddy. I can't work. But then, very cleverly, it does a thing into the ground, right? Like it jumps into the ground and does a
like
metro.
His foot in the way.
Yeah, or something. And so it digs in and it realises, and it says, follow me, there's a bunker. And we see him, he gets to walk through this jungle a bit, and it's a beautiful, lush, green jungle. And he comes across, this concrete sort of door structure. and there's a skeleton. And I really liked this because straight away this kind of changed. I felt it made me go, ooh, where's this story going to go now? Because the skeleton is who, sorry?
It's Ethan White himself.
It's him.
Because it's nice. I like this. So he looks and sees this dead, and there's plants growing through it. So it's been dead for a while.
Yeah.
And he looks at the collar. It says Ethan White.
Says his name.
He goes, oh no. He sees the bullet hole in the skull.
Yeah, it's got a clear bullet hole.
And then, like, okay, so you're still thinking, could have just been some other dude wearing that suit.
Could have chucked it on.
But no, then he finds the wrist collar DNA sampler device, the pain box wristband that he got. And that's like the only person in the world who has one of those is Ethan. So it's quite convincingly Ethan's skeleton.
It is. And he breaks the arm off.
Yes.
And so he's got it. And the only difference between this arm bracelet to the one that he's got on his arm is that it's green. It's got a green light, whereas his one has a red light. And so he's like, he's a bit confused about that. And then he also finds Archie, and it's exactly the same. It's just weathered, a lot older, and he presses, play last thing,
record,
and it starts to play this distorted message, two men yelling and arguing, and then there's a gunshot. And so he knows that that's him dying. So it's a very good plot point as well, I think, that, because it's kind of saying, well, if he carries on his path, that's probably his future. At some point soon he's going to get shot. And this is great because we're still, as an audience, also thinking that, someone in the future has called for him. Like, why did they call for Ethan?
Yeah.
And then he's come here to the future and he can't see anyone. He hasn't found anyone yet, but they're probably lurking I kept thinking, well, they're lurking somewhere, right? They're about to appear.
And it's interesting because...
And he's dead.
There's a dead body there with Ethan White.
Yeah.
Maybe the future person says, oh, well, send Ethan White.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his corpse here. Like,
Send that dude, So it's kind of like a cool sort of stuff.
I was thinking maybe it was his dad, because we didn't know the dad's fate.
No, we didn't know that at this point.
He just
what happened.
left them and told them to go for a walk or whatever, go to where we last met or whatever, and it wasn't. And he never turns up.
So we're having some good fun and games here. He's kind of, experimenting this world. Gets nighttime. He has to start a fire. There's a little bit of comedy in that. Easy peasy. Archie keeps telling him it's easy peasy. Just rub. And it's very sort of sexually connotative, it sounds to me. Like rubbing, rub, blow a little, blow.
What I liked about it here is the number of times I've had some problem with a bit of software and it's just not making any sense.
Yeah.
And you go look in the help file and it says, simply press this button.
Yeah.
And then you go, if it was simple, I wouldn't be looking at the help files.
Yeah. It's like step 1, open. Step 2, click on this. Step 3, you're like, but I can't find the click. Like, where do I click?
Oh, but they always use the phrase simply.
Yeah.
And so I reckon just ban that from any help thing, because people are going to the help. People are saying, hey, Archie, how do I make fire? Because if I knew and it was that simple, I wouldn't be asking you.
No, that's right.
So don't go telling me it's easy peasy.
No, but it's a nice little sort of thing, isn't it? Instructions. He also gets these berries, which I straight away was like, Jesus,
you're in a rainforest. Don't eat the berries.
Don't eat the berries.
There's
no good.
More.
And Archie can't identify them. So
more things that are going to kill you in a rainforest if you eat them than will save you. Or give you weird-ass hallucinations or something.
Yeah. I did think it was nice that Archie couldn't identify them, because I would presume scientifically, and look, if there's a botanist out there, that I'd imagine that if the Earth renews itself after we've annihilated it, there would be new types of plants, wouldn't there? There'd have to be.
They would have to
even new animals and stuff.
Well,
so
you think that in order for them to renew and regrow, they would have to have been... the survival of the fittest, the ones that were able to adapt and survive to the new conditions.
Yeah.
And it's only been 400 years, so it's not like 400 million years.
Yeah, that's right.
Where they could have. So you're going to get something
there
different.
may be no actual foods.
Yes. Why would there be?
Yeah.
There didn't seem to be any complex, anything like big going around the place.
No. So, and nor would the plants want to feed anything big, because they'd just be trying to establish themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, to put it this way, if he's still in Australia, which he is, we don't have large predators here.
No.
And presumably, along with all the death of the plants, well, there goes all the cows and sheep and the kangaroos and the emus. And So there would be no large animals. 400 years, again, not enough time to regrow new
to
large
evolve
animals.
that way.
The insects would have survived. There's always insects.
Yeah, there's always insects.
And obviously some plants somewhere managed to get their hooks and, roots
crevices
in somewhere into the
crevices.
moist crevices. Yeah, so he eats the berries.
He eats the berries. God knows why, but he eats them, and of course he's vomiting and
he has trouble, doesn't he?
And the storm rolls in, and this kind of man comes out of the sky and sort of attacks him. That's what it's kind of implied. He kind of appears and he kind of attacks him, but we see that it's a anti-venom.
Yes.
And then as Jude, and then it is Jude. The man is Jude. When Ethan comes to, he kind of explains that on the other side, back in time, they were watching his readings and they could tell that he wasn't doing so well. Now, there's a bit of a giveaway there, isn't there? Because Archie had said there's no communication. Were they actually reading his readings and realizing that, or did Jude just always be sent into the future?
Yeah, I didn't know that myself. That's why I was a bit confused. Because they kind of said Archie will communicate or something or other.
Yeah.
But it was not clear to me how they would get these readings from Archie.
Yeah, how was he pinging the messages back?
Which, maybe to think, well, it's a bit suspicious that conveniently he turns up
right
at the right time with a healing kit. But you'd imagine they, send it through.
Hey, this is a world where they've invented a chronicle time machine, so maybe they can.
Yes.
After sharing their findings, they follow Archie's directions into another functional door, and when they go into that, it's the chronicle lab. It's the time machine.
Where they just left.
And this time it's all old, and there's trees and roots and branches and all that sort of stuff kind of in this lab. They're sort of like looking at everything, and then the machine, they talk to Archie and things are turning on but not really working, and then this is where his wrist comes into play, and it kind of lightens up, and then he's screaming in pain and does a DNA test.
It's a really hardcore DNA test too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's when, and it turns green. So again, it's ominous that now it's turned green like the skeleton.
One step closer.
He's one step closer.
Except I always thought, though, that skeleton's really old. So I would have thought, from his point of view, I would have thought Jude also could have said, okay, yeah, maybe that's your skeleton, but look on the bright side. That skeleton's 400 years old. You get back to Xanthi. We don't know how old you are when you get shot.
That's right.
You could very well have, a reasonable life. Who knows?
But surely he also wouldn't be on the same time loop because it is so old.
Yeah,
he can't have come that far into the future, right? He must have gone something different.
Yeah, he comes back.
Because then he's seen him as a skeleton. He hasn't come in at 400 years and then he's just been shot in the head and it's just him.
That's what I mean. What that skeleton represents is that he does get back.
Yeah.
To, some previous time.
Yeah.
A long time ago, because like I said, there's plants and stuff going through that skeleton.
Yeah. And
he's so brittle, he just snaps his wrist and stuff. So, on the plus side, it means you're not stuck here in the future.
Yeah.
We'll worry about the whole not getting shot when we get back. How about we do that?
So, I think that's when he does have the flashback and it's his birthday and the father gives him the pain box.
Put your hand in there, son. All right.
No worries, Dad.
Crikey, Dad. You fucked me wrist up.
And then now I'm just going to fuck off back to work, he says.
I'm going back to work now. Sorry, son.
You'll
understand later.
You'll understand that you needed to see this as proof or something, we also see that there's a holographic, because he starts playing his father's sort of messages.
Yes.
Day one of using the Chronicle, inventing the Chronicle, and they realise that it's they did it and they sent a machine into the future to see when Earth would be breathable again and functional for humans, and that he would send his own son into the future And so that's the whole point of like setting up the risk analyzers, that his son is the only one that can kind of unlock the machine in the future.
Yeah, there's a bit of an insurance policy because, and he explains it later on. He says,
He does.
I hope you think that, I hope you realise that I did all this, because I do care about you. It's sort of like a kind of a rather weak apology, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. And but then he realised, the father says, we were going to then scrap that whole idea because when we sent matter, we couldn't actually bring it back because you needed the other end to be alive.
Yeah, the other end needs to be turned on in order to complete a link.
Yes.
Yes.
But all of this has, because of his wrist and everything, he has turned on the machine. And what's going on is then they're notified that the power source of the machine, the nuclear power core, is now malfunctioning. Which makes sense because it hasn't been operational for 400 years. So,
and it was malfunctioning often enough.
Back in the day. So
happy to work down to the last second.
Yes. So Jude is. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. Jude seems to freak out a bit over this now, whereas like at the start of the film they weren't too freaky about it. But I guess it's because they're thinking, well, it's the only way back is we need that power source.
I think they've got no backup. It's not a routine anymore.
No.
And off they go. They've got this literal countdown timer.
Yeah, there's a timer. Yeah.
Most films have some kind of time limit imposed to get the whole thing wrapped up.
Yep.
Because we did Edge of Tomorrow, and the countdown timer really was the fact that first of all he had to get it sorted out because if they didn't, tomorrow they'd be invading the UK and the world would end.
Yeah.
And then it hastened, I suppose you might say, the countdown timer hastened when he lost his repeatability.
Well, it also hastened because the guy said the rule that once he starts seeing the images, the alien was finding him as well, wasn't it? And so, like, it wouldn't take long. Once the alien found him, it would be all over, basically, because it'd kill him in another way, you know? Yeah. And so... Which it tried to.
So we get that countdown timer. This is a literal... In 3 hours and 15
minutes. 3 hours, the world blows up,
this thing, if you don't get it fixed, this is going to blow up. In fact, if you do get it fixed, this is going to turn on.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, something momentous is going to happen at the end of that town.
So to me, that was a real clear midpoint of the story because it's like, there's no more fun and games now. You've got two options. You either fix the machine and you then get the option to travel back and save your butts, or you don't fix the machine in 3 hours, whatever it was, and you die, like everyone dies.
We've stopped the exploration part of the movie.
Now it's serious time.
Now we've got the definite end point we have to achieve.
Yes.
We don't know how we're going to achieve it or exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
And
this is also a bit of a negative because things are worse. So even in this world where you're not too sure, like he's thinking, I'm going to die, whatever, but it's like, oh crap, now we've got 3 hours to make the decision of what we're going to do here. Yes. You know, so now your time frame is in play. Things are actually getting worse. We've explored this beautiful jungle where together we maybe we can't save the world, but maybe we could stay. And I think that's even a thing, doesn't it? Jude says we could just stay here. Like we could just stay here. Like I came here for you to look after you. We could forget about that other planet, the past, and just live here.
Bit of a bleak ending, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that was it.
I mean, sure.
Sure, Jude, I like you that much. I like you, but I don't know if I like you that much.
Also, we can't really restart the human race. I should talk to you about biology here. We can't start the human race.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, they make it to the power core, which is located underneath this overgrown ruins of the city. As I mentioned before, to me, there's a scene here that's a really amazing scene that they come out of the jungle. There's a big waterfall. There's a great big epic shot, and you sort of see skyscrapers leaning over. Some collapsed, some overgrown with trees, and there's a really big epic. You know, you can see what's happened to this city, and I really liked that. But then on top of that, as they walk through that, city looking for where this power core is. There's skeletons everywhere. So, and they're not being buried. They're just sitting there on the street.
Leaning up against
some have masks, some don't. Some are just kind of like, lying there. And it's obvious that it's kind of like the more you look into the city, there's just skeleton. which means everyone kind of just died. They probably just all ran out of oxygen at once. And so it's more telling, like the situation is getting worse and worse, really, isn't it? That if they don't do something in the past, is dead. And
it's adding to that mystery of what on earth could they, like the past is dead. Is that really the end? And I was trying to think of how this story is going to get out of that. Like, it didn't strike me as a sort of story that literally was a march to doom. This wasn't a horror film.
No, it didn't feel like that, did
like
it?
a creeping dread. This was something was going to have to happen, and I was thinking, is it going to be that Xanthi or someone comes through the portal to him, or he goes back and finds out that they are the ones back in the past who managed it? I was trying to come up with how to do it, and I was also wondering, or maybe it's going to be like a Back to the Future situation where you can alter timelines, and then when he finds Xanthi's body in the classroom holding that little metal flower, that broke my heart.
And she's written on it, "You never came back."
Yeah, I wish you were here.
I wish you were here.
Yeah, and that just about breaks him. And he and Jude had a bit of a tension. We get the gun shown, which is important because it's like, okay, it's a good old Chekhov's gun. He's got a few things, I think, this old Chekhov fella, but the gun is one of them. We already know that there's a bullet hole in the skull. Yeah. And so now we know where the gun might come from.
Yeah, and Jude is saying, I've come here for you and to save you and help you, and yet he's the one with the gun.
Yes,
and
I need this to protect you. And I kept thinking, then from what? There's nothing here, chuck it.
Yeah.
Because, if you chuck it, then how could you get shot? It doesn't make sense. But anyway.
But they make it anyway to the room where the power machine is. There's kind of a bit of escalating that they can't turn it off. It's too, it's whatever. It's erroring in too bad of ways. And Ethan says, well, the only way is to kind of be in the room and go over the fail-safe and then manually override it. Jude doesn't like that, but he kind of, pushes him out of the way and the doors lock and then he's in there. And I think it runs out of oxygen, doesn't it? The room, just in time. And he still, but he pulls the lever and then the machine resettles itself. Yeah. And the power kind of settles. I heavily
suspect that engineers don't design these things like that.
No.
It's like, I think it's just like, once it goes past a certain point, you can't fix it.
No, that's right.
Because if it was fixable, then some engineer would have made a button that you can push that would fix it.
Yes.
Otherwise, why would you make it so you had to close the door? But, it was damaged. It was in the future. It was old. It wasn't really the point.
It was already hodgy-podged together.
The fail-safes weren't working properly, whatever.
Yeah.
I did find it amusing, though, that it's like James Bond. You always have the like the sauna where it goes up to the dangerous red level, or the exercise machine that you can put the dial around, and it's like, why is there a level 11?
Why is there a death level?
Why do you have the dangerous setting on what is clearly not supposed to be a killing machine?
Yeah.
But, that's, you never question it, and I didn't question it.
No, I didn't question it either. So with 37 minutes to spare, the duo return back to the Chronicle lab. Ethan finds another door, and he opens it, and it's the entranceway next to his skeleton. So it's sort of him starting to put the pieces of the jigsaw together that, hang on a minute, there's a voice recording of two men arguing and then I get shot. There's you and I here, Surrey.
And I've got a gun.
And you've got a gun. And the doorway is there. So it's not looking too promising, or it's looking a bit obvious of maybe that Jude is the one that shoots me. So then why would Jude shoot me? And then so he confronts Jude, and this is where Jude actually reveals that you can't change the past. No. There's no hope. Like, no matter what you do now, you can't actually change it. The only thing we could do is like kind of live here and be free and have the oxygen, and you chose to come here. There's no going back. We should just sort of set up shop.
But again, it's I don't know what you're going to eat either, because it's not like you're highly skilled. Like, if I was dumped out in a rainforest somewhere, I would also not know what to eat.
No.
As I said, there's no big animals around.
Stop taking your pants off, Surrey. It doesn't help in the jungle,
Well, that's all I've got. I'd eat my pants.
He has a look at playing back more of his father's log, and the computer log, the video log, and he learns of the day that his father died.
And there's Jude.
And there is Jude is in the room. So we get that that he learns that Jackson, the bad lady running the company, that kind of like, his father defended the machine, said we can't use it, it's not really going to work with matter. And then she's kind of double-crossed him with the new scientist, and with that, shoots him.
Bang.
And then hands over Jude to look after the son. Yes. You kind of keep an eye out on him from here. So, it's all kind of the drama's played out to that point. And also that explains that why his father just sort of one day disappeared, never came home or whatever.
I was still up to that point thinking that his dad was going to re-enter this story.
Me too, yeah.
Because I was like, he went away, and then I was thinking, okay, so he's jumped through, and he's going to be
stuck in the future, and he'll be the guy in the future that asks for his son or something like that. Yeah,
but this kind of throws that away, doesn't it?
It does. So Jax, we did that. Ethan then tries to shut the Chronicle down, but Jude moves in to stop him. And this is sort of like moving into a bit of the, that idea of the dark night of the soul part. Like that things are kind of, for Ethan, we've gone through, the machine is fixed. Should we go back? He's told that there's no hope, so it doesn't really matter if you go back. He's also learnt how his father died.
Brush of death.
There's been a brush of death. He's also realising that he's probably going to be shot by Jude. So it's all looking pretty bad. And Jude and him argue, and they basically... Jude wants to fight him, doesn't he? He wants to physically... He's like, fight me.
Yes, he's trying to... Well, he's... I think Jude at this point is quite conflicted, because I think he was of the opinion that he would be in on this, and the whole time he's trying to find a way, I think, of getting Ethan to be able to stay with him.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking at this point, the reason Jude had the gun was because he knew that Jackson and her cohort were coming through.
Yeah.
And so he needed the gun to protect it, because he kept saying, I've got the gun, I need to protect you. I need to protect you. And the whole time you're going, from what?
Yeah.
And it's sort of revealed there that Jackson's coming through. Ethan sent Ethan White. And they're going to have this arduous, you kill me, and they see the recording on Archie, he swaps the batteries over.
Yeah.
And, Jude sort of gets pissed off. He's like, you're ruining all of these plans, which the plans were that we were going to stay living here, and Jackson's going to come through, but I was going to protect you from Jackson.
And that's what he's sort of also like, he's saying, but it's, you can see here, you shoot me. And he's like, well, I'm not going to shoot you. You're like, I'm here to protect you. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of causes that fight, doesn't it? It's like, don't believe the video recording.
Then
like,
why do you have the gun? Why do you have the gun?
Well, it's here to protect you from when she's coming. She's coming through the machine.
Yeah. So they have that fight, and it plays out much like, it's interesting because they saw a video footage of the fight. Yeah. And it starts playing like that, except, this can't be the fight, because the guy, he got shot back in the past, not in the present. So I was starting to have a bit of hope here, which was odd. And I didn't know how it was going to plan out. But yes, at the very, very last minute, Jude shoots himself in the head. Yeah. And thus demonstrates free will.
He does.
It's like, this can no longer occur the way you think it's going to occur. Or could it? Because here's the little trick, I think. At the last moment, like Jackson's on the other side, it's all firing up. They've got the lineup of people all ready to go through. And she tells the security guard, okay, look, if Ethan White comes through here, pop a cap in his skull. Yep. And we'll all go through, and it won't really matter after that anyway. Yeah. And the guard kind of goes, yeah, okay, because he's pretty desperate, I would suggest. Yeah. Which, again, I'm sort of thinking, okay, that's actually how he dies. He does come back, and then he tries to run out that door or something, or it was a scuffle, and he's taken over and shot in the head. Yeah, yeah. And that would be how he dies, but he sees a different way. And finally, it opens up, and instead of Ethan coming through, we get a cornucopia of plant life.
We do.
It really looks like a cornucopia, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful little package. And, Debbie's, she's not happy.
She's not happy, no.
She's going, we were going to go through there to the future and...
she's
and
not
now it
happy
says
at all.
you've saved the world. Well, it's interesting because it hasn't spoiled their future.
No.
So from Deborah's point of view, their future has plant life in it.
Yes.
And oxygen. Okay, well, that means this plant life here, seed that, find it is able to survive in these new conditions, whatever they happen to be. And, now you get that future where there's plant.
Yeah.
So from their point of view in the past, the past hasn't changed, the future hasn't changed. It's actually still consistent.
Yes.
The whole thing is consistent because Ethan he sent the message back. So from the past, they still see the message got sent back.
Yep, they do.
Ethan went, and then bingo bongo, it's trees and greenery. So that was quite nice.
It was, and he also transmits a recording to the news station of Jackson killing his father. So she's sort of arrested and, dealt with that way. And then in that future, he destroys the Chronicle. So he sort of destroys the machine so that they would never be able to reconnect to it or communicate to it. And Xanthia has given a special little flower in a box from him.
Which is as close to being back with her as he could make.
Yes.
Which is nice.
And then what's interesting, this is the time loop scenario that you're saying, is that then he goes out and his corpse is no longer there.
No, he's done the like I said, Back to the Future photograph
photo
fading business going on there.
So the corpse is gone, which is good, which is nice. And then he goes and buries Jude.
Yeah, and he I think he gets a bit of hope from that, of course.
Yeah, oh, of course.
He goes back to the moist crevice, which is where the city was.
Yeah.
And, we get the same slow panning shot. And I remember sitting there going, hurry up, come on, I want to see what it is. I want to see.
Yeah.
Is it now just going to be a green garden?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be a ruined city or
like a mold
an actual city?
Yeah.
And sure enough, it reveals it's like an elven city, if you like, with all trees and stuff. People have clearly learnt their lesson and have figured out a way of working with what they have.
Yeah, working with nature and stuff. They're living in these big sort of skyscrapers that are shaped like trees, which is cool. And that's it. That's the end. That's how it ends. The fini. Okay, so that is our main narrative plot points. And it's a nice kind of end because the world is restored, isn't it? So it's the opposite to the start.
Yes, it's pretty much bright, it's airy, it's green, it's not desperate looking.
Yeah.
There's no dark tunnels and mouldy city streets.
So it is. It's a nice opposite as a place because the start of the film is a place, a location. So opposites of the start, the end. All right, so then we move on to our ladder. So our ladder is recommending to you guys out there, an order of how you should watch things. Start at the number one and work your way down to the bottom one. It's obviously an ever-evolving ladder because we watch a film every couple of weeks and talk about it. And this isn't necessarily ordering them in best to worst or anything like that. It's ordering them in a viewing sort of list. So whereabouts have you put 2067 on your ladder? Sorry.
Well, I liked the synergies this has with The Beyond. But I didn't want to put it there because I was also like, I've got After Earth next to The Beyond. And I think...
It's a little bit similar, isn't it, to Afterlife? There's a bit of flow on.
Sometimes I choose things to try and get some high contrast. This is a synergistic trilogy here of 2067, After Earth, which is where Will Smith and his son come back to Earth after it was destroyed by humans and aliens having a bitch fight or something. And then The Beyond, which again was where the Earth was threatened to be destroyed by cosmic forces, aliens. Yeah, so I'm putting in there. I think it makes for a good thing. I don't know that you can do a marathon viewing of all of these. It's take you a week or so of watching, but
why not?
But you can pick out duologies, one-offs,
Yeah,
trilogies, short sequences, and that's my sequence. What about you?
Fair enough. For me, it's going further down the rungs, but I'm putting it under Shanghai Fortress and above I.O. So I think there's a little bit of similarities again, that Shanghai's sort of in the future, the weather's being disruptive, and also with
it's the last
I.O.
city.
Yeah, and also with I.O. being that she was the last.
There's ecological disaster.
Again.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a bit of a similarity going on between those ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would place it in there. I think if you sort of, if you're watching them day by day, or, a bit of a marathon, those three would work quite well together, I think. So, Surrey, and anyway, if you're out there and you've got your own ladder going on, let us know what you think. Tell us on social media what you thought about where we've positioned it on the ladder, and what works for you. What about the science, Surrey? Are you going to tell me that you have built a chronicle time machine, or are you going to tell me how we solve climate change?
I will have told you about
You've already
my
told me.
time machine. I will be going to have done already. So
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know how that works out, but we're just going to have to go with it.
Yeah,
No.
I like the idea of that.
Well, we spoke about time machines. Time machines are fantastic. There is a program here on Earth to save plants in case they go extinct.
Yep.
We've got a vault in Iceland which has got all the seeds that could be saved, paying particular attention to, first of all, like diversity and usefulness to humans.
Yeah.
Because you do have the issues where you get, for example, at the moment, banana crops. They're all the same banana. There's like 3 bananas I think we grow.
Yep.
And one of them is the one that we use commercially, which is the Cavendish banana, which is the one you're going to look at. We've got a couple slight variants on that. You've got tall ones, short ones, fat ones, skinny ones.
Yeah.
But they're all the same genus. So all of our banana plantations, there's a virus which is running rampant amongst them.
Oh, no.
And it is destroying the banana crops, basically. It's believed that not too long away, we're just not going to be able to grow that banana anymore. Like, it's just not going to be viable, profitable. This disease will be in everything because the bananas are a zygote. Zygote? Yes. Rhizome. Sorry, not a zygote. Are a rhizome. So they're like a grass, like cooch. And they have like this root system which grows spurs from which sprout these banana leafy. They're not really proper trees. They're sort of leaf bundles with the flowers on it, which means that you see a plantation of bananas and they're all more or less the same banana.
Yeah.
Like that's the one plant. You get one of them infected with a disease and yeah, you can pretty much say goodbye to your plantation. I'm not going to talk about that. Despite having just spoken about it.
You made me feel like a banana now as well.
I want to talk about oxygen because the big premise here was ran out of oxygen due to plant life all dying. So there's a few questions. How much oxygen do we have in the air? It's about 21%, 20 to 21%, depending on how you want to count it and what time of year you look and whereabouts you go. How much do we need? Probably about 18%, 16% if you want to stay marginally conscious. But 21% is where you want to be.
Yeah.
Where does all of that oxygen come from? Would logging the last tree in the rainforest really make much difference?
Yeah, because many moons ago I heard the ocean creates oxygen. Is that correct?
That is correct. The ocean is probably about 50 to 80% of the Earth's oxygen is created in the ocean.
Right.
In particular, there is one small species of bacteria, if you like, one microorganism called Prochlorococcus is the smallest photosynthetic organism, and it produces up to about 20% of the oxygen in the entire biosphere.
Yeah, right.
So, mind you, though, that means if we've got one organism representing such a large percentage, what if a disease or some condition, say global warming or something changes, the acidity in the ocean changes, and you get a mass die-off, where we could have a dip in oxygen. So that's a bit of a worry. So I had to look a bit further into that and going, well, what about the realities of losing our plants and our oxygen and so forth. So what we had here is we've got, how do we generate oxygen if we do? And we are studying this not because we're worried about losing oxygen here on Earth, but if we go to Mars or the Moon or, you know, long term in space or anything like that, we need to generate oxygen. We can't lug enough of it around. Do we even really want to take that much oxygen from Earth and transport it to Mars in order to make Mars livable? Like, that seems like robbing from Peter to pay Richard Branson. Sorry, Richard. I know you're not really a bad guy. You're probably quite nice, in fact.
Yeah.
But anyway, so a former Caltech postdoctoral fellow, Yongxi Yao, please, that's probably not really how you pronounce it, but I'm a Westerner, so it's as close as I'm going to get, and a current Caltech chemical engineer, Professor Konstantinos Giapis, they have simulated a reaction whereby they smack carbon dioxide into stuff.
Smack.
To release oxygen. Because you're looking at like Mars, and the atmosphere of Mars does have molecular oxygen in it.
Yeah.
And a lot of carbon dioxide relative to its density. It's a very low density atmosphere. But, so where does it come from? And they're going, well, one way to do that, it was thought UV light, that doesn't work out. Like, there's not enough of it.
Yeah, right.
So they went and got this gold foil, and gold foil is special because it doesn't oxidize. Like, gold is very, very stable. It's very hard to dissolve gold, for example. And they shot a whole heap of carbon dioxide at real hard, like about the speed of a comet. And they found that what would happen, and we've got this little animation of it there, is basically the carbon dioxide hits and it smacks together and twists, and the oxygens bump into each other, and oxygens will bond to one another to make O2. They will share electrons quite strongly. And there's enough energy that the carbon just gets popped off. So you end up with carbon dropping out and free oxygen molecules. And that's kind of interesting. They've got this reactor where they can turn carbon dioxide into O2. It's tremendously inefficient and totally impractical for any real uses. But it does demonstrate that you can break oxygen away using, say, electrolysis, where you introduce a whole bunch of electricity, and that gives enough energy for the oxygen atoms to break away. And we do this with water to generate hydrogen and oxygen, which is why I'm surprised they had so much trouble. They've got like a fusion reactor there. You just need some water, and then you've got all the oxygen you could want. But clearly, I think this part of the sickness in the movie was... I think part of the concept of the sickness is that the air itself, there's something is broken.
Something's going wrong,
Something's broken such that, you can make oxygen, but it's not coming out right. You've got to get the high quality oxygen, which would be, the highly filtered, the stuff that they sort of pump out and distribute clearly gets contaminated. Yeah. And this is causing the sickness. So I won't pick holes in that. But yes, they had this nice idea that you could accelerate things through carbon dioxide atmosphere. So what if you dislodged dust from various places around the world, the solar system, shot it at Mars? You could actually have it just start bombarding and start creating free oxygen. Maybe. It's certainly worth looking at. Now for the doomsday scenario. So there is coming a time where on Earth all plant life will become extinct. Oxygen will be all used up, being replaced by carbon dioxide, and large life as we know it, anything other than microbes, becomes impossible. And it is 2067. No, it's not 2067. It's about 1 billion years from now.
Right.
So we've got a bit of time to plan for it. It's okay. Basically what's going to happen here is we're going to go from about 20-21% oxygen, and then you're going to get a sort of a runaway cascade effect, which is going to reduce that. So Kazumi Ozaki at Toho University in Funabashi, Japan, and Chris Reinhardt at the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, they modeled the Earth's climate, biological and geological systems to predict how atmospheric conditions on Earth will change. And so what they had to look at, we've got about 1 billion years for the high levels of oxygen before it starts changing back to what the Earth was like about 2.4 billion years ago.
Right.
Very low oxygen. The central reason for this shift is the sun. The sun's going to get older, it gets a little bit hotter, and it releases a bit more energy. And as it releases a bit more of that energy, it starts to decrease the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as the CO2 actually absorbs that energy. We know it's a greenhouse gas, it does that. And breaks down. This sounds good. Okay, carbon dioxide is going to break down to oxygen. That's freaking fantastic. Why are we worried about that? Unfortunately, plants produce oxygen from carbon dioxide. And that's where the vast majority of our oxygen comes from, is these plants. So if they have no carbon dioxide or insufficient, the plants suffocate. And then when the plants suffocate, there's this really sad thing about rotting decay and whether it be plant or animal, is it uses oxygen and produces carbon dioxide. So if you get this tipping point where there's enough energy coming from the sun screwing up the carbon dioxide, everything dies and gets suffocated, and then it uses up all the oxygen in its decomposition.
So it drowns itself.
So it drowns itself, and then we all end up dead.
Yep.
Of course, it's 1 billion years from now, we'll all be
dead
robots or energy light beings or dead. Or we'll have colonized multiple planets, and it's just, God knows, 1 billion years is an unfathomable length of time. It's, and if I had $1 for every year that there was 1 billion in 1 billion years, I still wouldn't be able to fund a space mission. We keep coming back to it. Sorry, guys. It's topical. It's science fiction. To tell you the truth, I would be on one of those spaceships in a heartbeat for a joyride if I could afford it too. Before I gave it to the salvos. Or maybe I'd auction it, and no, we won't go into that. So I think that's two sides. So we've got one side, we can make oxygen from carbon dioxide, but eventually, yes, the Earth will get into a runaway situation and suffocate. And you just got to look at, say, for example, Venus, which is a bit closer to the sun, has a bit more energy. It has a runaway greenhouse. There's no life there. Certainly, there might be weird alien bacteria that we don't know about, but it's nothing we can discover and nothing we can use. So there you go. It's a bit of gloom, but that's okay. 1 billion years.
So I suppose it could be plausible by 2067 if we accelerate that, I suppose.
Well, that's the thing, is if you do get a mass die-off, if you introduce into the environment conditions that, for example, is deadly to that Poliococcus, whatever, that little bug that that's responsible for like 20%.
So if we killed that off.
And the problem is you get that double effect. So when you kill that off, it's no longer producing oxygen, but it also absorbs oxygen as it rots.
So does that use up 40% of our oxygen? And
you could get sort of a bit of a runaway effect there where, where you do, and you do get that in the ocean. There's dead zones in the ocean where you'll have an algal bloom, which will produce ironically will produce a lot of oxygen. But then because it just covers the whole area and sucks up all the nutrients, it dies off in a big way. And so then now it's covering the sunlight, so the sunlight can't penetrate down into the depths to do any life down there, and it rots, which sucks up the oxygen and suffocates all the fish. So you do get these dead zones in rivers. There are lakes that just suddenly die off for the same reason. Like they get industrial runoff or fertilizer runoff. They bloom.
The Lorax again.
They bloom, suffocate, everything dies, and they've got to replenish the fish stocks and reseed with things. Yeah. So quite possible, entirely possible. I do like that sort of plausibility. The time machine process also, obviously, it seems like an unusual and unlikely process, but the way they use it as kind of point to point from now into the future. I
like that, yeah.
That we can go into the future. We do. That's the way we travel, is into the future. Mm-hmm. So could we travel at a faster pace through the future by connecting these wormholes? That's sort of one of those theorized possibilities, regardless of how improbable it is.
Which again is what 2067 I think really is. It's a what if. It's a writer who's sitting there and going, well, what if we allow the climate to disintegrate? And I mean, as you know, as a writer as well, it's kind of like we say, take your protagonist to the worst case scenario. That's what he's done here. He's taken his character and gone, okay, well, worst case scenario is sometime in the future we have no oxygen. That would be the worst case scenario.
And his entire family's dead. Yeah. And his wife is dying.
Yeah, yeah.
And his friends betrayed him. And
well, that's
what else,
the
what
detail.
What else can but it is.
We'll send him into the future, and then there's a dead version of him in the future.
Because there's no point instead of saying, we'll set him in a world where sometime in the future the oxygen's going to run out.
Yeah, I know. And that's the whole thing. You're saying there, naturally in 1 billion years the Earth will run out of oxygen. It doesn't make much of a movie, does it? Because 1 billion years is a long way. It was a long time away. Exactly what, is it that clock we're talking about, the clock in a narrative, 3 hours to nuclear explosion where you die and the machine dies? Yeah, okay, you got to get your skates on, boys, fix the problem. You got 1 billion years. Yeah, okay, well, I'm going to go do other things, honestly.
Let's not worry about that.
Let's not worry about that. And it's that analogy of putting the frog in hot water, isn't it? Which is a good analogy for climate change as well, is that we can kind of dismiss a lot of climate change because we kind of are the frog in hot water. We're slowly boiling ourselves.
And it is fair enough. As I said, I don't think there's much room for genuine skeptics anymore. Now people are just kind of digging their heels in to be awkward.
Yeah.
The people who, because you've got a bell curve distribution. You've got the people at the bleeding edge who, as soon as they see the global warming, they go, yes, that is definitely going to be true.
Yep.
The problem is they're saying that with a bit of a leap of faith at that point.
Yeah.
There's not enough evidence. But as the evidence builds, you get, you're climbing up that bell curve until you've got the majority of people now going, oh yeah, look, it's clearly true. Mm-hmm. It must be.
Yep.
And then you get the tail off people, the bottom, the last 0.5% who just it's not actually about whether it's true or not. It's not actually about the any facts or details like that. It's just they just know.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. It's not real.
That's exactly right.
Whether that be they secretly believe it is real, but have taken a position and they're very stubborn in their position.
Yeah.
Or if it's just the case that their view on reality requires that they don't believe it to be real, because if that were to be real, then these other things would also be real.
Yeah.
And
why not? And
we don't want that. So
no. And we're seeing this same situation with the whole COVID-19 vaccine situation. So, which I don't even want to get started on that, but it's that same thing. You've explained it well there. The bell distribution. You're going to have the pro, have the super pro people. You're going to have the people looking at sort of actual trying to figure out evidence and make a critical decision or a logical decision on the evidence that you can look at, and of course then you curve off to people that are going to
you want to hope
throw a pot plant at a police officer about getting vaccinated,
and you want to hope that the bulk of that bell curve passes fast enough.
Yeah.
And with the climate change, we want to hope that we now have enough people who are if not absolutely convinced, they're at least believe that it's still worthwhile making the place a better.
Yeah.
Let's still just make the Earth have better atmosphere. Let's reduce pollution, because that's just a good thing.
Yeah.
And this global warming, maybe we can't do anything about it. It's probably real, but let's just do something good. And we're hoping we got enough of that early enough.
Yeah.
Or we're going to be in 2067 making time machines. Which has its perks, I suppose.
Yeah. I think Muskie will invent one of those machines anyway, won't he?
Yeah, so we can go back in time and beat Richard to
That's
space.
Right. Well, his agenda. Sorry, we've really gone on about his agenda is to go to Mars, isn't it? That's what he really wants to.
That's pretty.
But anyway,
I'd love to go to Mars at some point.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Brings us to the end for 2067. Great Aussie sci-fi. I am again. These sci-fi movies that are coming out of Australia. Sorry, I'm glad that we've sort of looked for them, and we've seen a few of them now, and there's some really good ones there. Cargo,
Other Worlds.
Yeah, I Am Mother. So, there's a bunch in there now that we've looked at in our 63 episodes. So look out for them. Take a note. They're a little bit different in their own way. And yeah, this one visually, aesthetically, I think anyone that's interested in that sort of style, the narrative is also really interesting, as we were just saying, to push a character to the extremes. This is a good example of that. And I also think it's a really great example of a what if sort of premise, taking something that we have in our current society and just pushing it out,
hardcore.
Yeah, and questioning what would happen if this happened. So let us know what we thought about 2067. And hit us up on all of our avenues: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our website, YouTube, anywhere.
Message in a bottle.
Yeah. Send a message from the future back on a little flower.
And I'd love to hear what next week's episode is, but I feel so sort of a little bit sleepy.
You're very tired, but this film is actually telling you that you will never sleep again. Sorry. It's called Awake.
Awake. I'm awake.
2021. It's brand new. It is available on Netflix. So if you're out there, Netflix, we're giving you another promotion. I do want to get you on the show. But yeah, Awake is the new sleep. Ben Lee song. No, this film is just called Awake, and I don't know much more about it apart from what you just said. I think it's a world where people one night can't sleep. No one in the world can sleep anymore. So it sounds pretty interesting. So we'll be checking that out and having a good deep dive on it next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.